The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in their seats, waiting. The light from distant stars came through the massive windows, casting long shadows on the floor. Ambassador Keth of the Altarian people walked slowly to the center of the room. His blue skin looked pale under the bright lights. His hands shook as he held his speech notes. General Vex watched from his special seat high above the floor. The Zelkarian leader was twice the size of most beings in the room. His red armor gleamed and his forearms rested on the chair's metal sides. Behind him sat rows of his officers, all wearing the same red armor. They looked bored. They had conquered 17 star systems. What could this small, peaceful species possibly tell them that would matter? Keth cleared his throat. The sound echoed in the quiet hall. "Members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice soft but clear. "I come before you today with a warning about a world called Earth." Some beings in the crowd shifted in their seats. Earth was a small planet in the outer rim of the galaxy. Most species barely knew it existed. Its people sent out radio signals that showed they were young and divided. They fought wars with primitive weapons and had barely reached their own moon. 50 years ago, Keth continued, my people sent 3 exploration ships to the Earth system. We wanted to make contact with the humans. Our ships were the best we had. They carried our most experienced crews. His voice grew quieter. None of them ever returned. General Vex let out a loud laugh. The sound boomed across the hall. "Ambassador Keth," he called out, his voice deep and rough. "Are you telling us that your ships were destroyed by humans? Beings who still use chemical, rockets and metal bullets?" Other beings in the crowd began to whisper and laugh. The Altarians were known for being peaceful, but they were also known for having weak military forces. Their ships were built for exploration, not fighting. Keth's face showed pain, but he continued. "We sent more ships to find out what happened. These crews were told to stay far from Earth and only watch. What they saw?" He paused, looking around the room. "What they saw made them flee back to our homeworld immediately." "What did they see?" asked Counselor Zara, a tall being from the Vegan system. Her voice showed she was curious, but also doubtful. "Human ships," Keth said, "but not the primitive vessels their radio signals suggested. These ships moved in ways that should not be possible. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Our sensors could barely track them." He looked directly at General Vex. "And there were so many of them, hidden throughout their solar system." The crowd grew quiet again. Even General Vex stopped laughing. Keth pressed on. "We are not the only ones who have experienced this. I have spoken with representatives from 6 other species. All of them sent ships to Earth. All of them lost ships or had their crews flee in terror." He pulled out a small device and activated it. Images appeared in the air above the council floor. The first image showed a burned and twisted piece of metal floating in space. "This is all that remains of a Corvan battlecruiser," Keth explained. "The Corvans are known for their strong military. Their ships have thick armor and powerful weapons. This cruiser was found drifting near Earth's moon. There were no survivors." The next image showed a different ship. This one completely intact but empty. "This is a Nexari science vessel. It was found orbiting Earth with all its crew missing. The ship's computers showed no record of any attack. The crew simply vanished." General Vex stood up, his massive form casting a shadow over the floor below. "These could be accidents," he said. "Space is dangerous. Ships are lost all the time." 7 different species? Keth asked. "All near the same world? All with no clear explanation?" He shook his head. "This is not coincidence, General. This is a pattern." Dr. Yule from the Science Division stepped forward. He was a small, gray being with large eyes. "Ambassador Keth," he said in a high, thin voice, "our long-range scans of Earth show a primitive civilization. They burn fossil fuels for energy. They use projectile weapons in their wars. Their fastest ships barely reach a fraction of light speed. How could such a species pose a threat to advanced civilizations?" Keth looked tired. "I cannot explain how, Doctor. I can only tell you what has happened. Every species that has approached Earth with anything more than the most basic observation has suffered losses. Some have lost ships. Some have lost crews. Some have simply had their ships return with crews who refused to speak about what they saw. He activated his device again. This time, an audio recording played. The voice was rough and filled with fear. It spoke in the Altarian language, but the Council's translation system made it understandable to all. Command, this is Captain Thex of the exploration vessel Seeker. We have observed the human homeworld as ordered, but something is wrong here, very wrong. Our sensors detect massive structures beneath their cities, energy readings that make no sense, and the humans, they know we are here. They are watching us. We request immediate permission to leave this system. The recording cut to static. Then another voice came through. Seeker, your request is denied. Continue your mission. Then came Captain Thex's voice again, but now it was filled with panic. Command, they are coming. Human ships, but not like anything in their transmissions. They move like they are alive. We are leaving the system now. Do not send anyone else here. Do not. The recording ended in silence. The Great Hall was quiet for a long moment. Finally, General Vex spoke. Even if this recording is real, he said, it proves nothing. Captain Thex may have panicked over shadows and sensor ghosts. General, Keth said, his voice now strong and clear. I have stood before this council and given you the truth. 7 species have approached Earth. 7 species have suffered losses. The humans may appear primitive, but appearances can lie. I beg you to listen to this warning. General Vex looked around the room at his officers. They all wore expressions of confidence and mild amusement. The Zelkarian Empire had never met an enemy they could not defeat. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop any attack. What could one small world of primitive humans do against such power? Ambassador Keth, General Vex said, his voice filled with authority. The Zelkarian Empire appreciates your concern, but we do not make decisions based on fear and rumors. Earth sits in a strategic position on the outer rim. Its resources would benefit the entire galaxy under proper management. He paused, looking down at the small blue figure on the floor, below. The Empire will investigate this world properly, with sufficient force to handle any surprises. Keth's shoulders slumped. He had failed. General, please, do not underestimate them. Whatever the humans truly are, they are not what they appear to be. But General Vex had already turned away, speaking quietly with his officers. Plans were already being made. Ships would be prepared. The conquest of Earth would begin soon. As the council session ended and beings began to leave the Great Hall, Keth stood alone in the center of the room. He had done everything he could. The warning had been given. Whether anyone would listen was no longer in his control. Above, General Vex smiled as he walked toward the exit. Earth would fall within a month. Of this, he was certain. 3 weeks later, the Zelkarian war fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 3,000 ships filled the darkness of space. The smallest vessels were twice the size of Earth's largest buildings. The flagship Dominator was so massive it had its own gravity field. General Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the blue and green world through the main viewing screen. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. White clouds swirled over brown and green continents. He could see the lights of human cities on the dark side of the planet. Scan the system, Vex ordered his science officer. Commander Kral worked at his station, his 6 arms moving quickly over the controls. Sir, I detect primitive space stations around the planet. Several small ships in orbit. Nothing that poses a threat to our fleet. Vex nodded. This was exactly what he had expected. What about their military forces? Ground-based missile systems. Sir, nuclear weapons but very old designs. Fighter aircraft that use chemical fuel. No energy shields, no plasma weapons. Kral looked up from his station. Sir, their most advanced ships appear to be simple transport vessels. No weapons that our sensors can detect. Perfect, Vex said with satisfaction. Send the standard surrender demand. The message was broadcast on all human communication frequencies. It was simple and direct. People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Zelkarian Empire. Surrender immediately and your lives will be spared. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your cities. On Earth, the message was received in a hidden facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Dr. Lisa Grant sat at a control station, watching data stream across multiple screens. Next to her stood Captain Jake Morrison, a tall man in a military uniform that bore no national markings. They're using the standard Imperial protocol, Lisa said, her fingers dancing over her keyboard. Same as the Corvins used 5 years ago. Jake nodded. And the Nexari before them. They never learn. He pressed a button on his console. All stations, this is command. Operation Mousetrap is now active. I repeat, Operation Mousetrap is now active. Across the planet, hidden facilities began to respond. In what appeared to be ordinary office buildings, weapons systems came online. In innocent-looking warehouses, fighter squadrons prepared for launch. Beneath major cities, thousands of people moved through tunnels and bunkers with practiced efficiency. Above, Earth's atmosphere, the human response began. Old nuclear missiles launched from various countries streaking up toward the alien fleet. The Zelkarian ships easily destroyed them with energy beams. Fighter jets rose from military bases around the world, their primitive engines leaving smoke, trails in the sky. Vex watched the pathetic display with amusement. Is this all they can manage? Destroy the fighters and prepare for planetary bombardment. The Zelkarian ships opened fire. Beams of energy lanced down from space, striking military bases and government buildings. But something was wrong. The explosions were too small, the damage too limited, and the human casualties were far lower than expected. Sir, Commander Krall said, confusion in his voice. The human cities are nearly empty. Our sensors show massive population movements, but we cannot track where they have gone. Underground bunkers, Vex said dismissively. Cowards hiding like insects. Continue the bombardment. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan pulled her fighter into a steep climb, chasing 3 Zelkarian interceptors into the upper atmosphere. Her aircraft looked ancient compared to the sleek alien ships, but it moved with impossible grace, turning and diving in ways that should have torn it apart. Behind her flew 5 more human fighters, all moving in perfect coordination. They spoke to each other in calm, professional voices, using tactics that seemed far too advanced for a primitive species. Lead 3, you have 2 bogeys on your 6, Kate's wingman called out. Copy that, Lead 2. Braking left in 3, 2, 1. The human fighters scattered, but not in panic. Each movement was calculated, drawing the alien ships deeper into Earth's atmosphere. The Zelkarian pilots, confident in their superior technology, followed eagerly. Now, Kate said quietly into her radio. What happened next defied everything. The Zelkarians thought they knew about human capabilities. The primitive fighters suddenly moved with incredible speed and agility. Their weapons, which had appeared to be simple projectile guns, fired energy bolts that cut through Zelkarian armor like paper. In seconds, all 3 alien fighters were destroyed. On the surface, Major Tom Bradley coordinated the evacuation of Denver. But this was no panicked retreat. Civilians moved in orderly groups through hidden tunnels. Military equipment emerged from concealment points throughout the city. Anti-aircraft systems that had been disguised as cell phone towers and water tanks came online. Tom spoke into his radio headset. Sector 7 is clear. All civilians in bunkers. Defense grid is active. Similar reports came in from around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, all reporting successful evacuations and active defenses. The humans were not caught off guard. They had been ready. In space, the real battle was beginning. General Vex watched in growing alarm as his sensors detected new contacts. Ships were appearing throughout the solar system, but not from the direction of Earth. They seemed to materialize from empty space itself. Where did they come from? Vex demanded. Unknown, sir, Krall replied, his voice tight with worry. They appear to be using some form of stealth technology. Our sensors cannot track them properly. The new ships were nothing like the primitive vessels Earth had shown the galaxy. They were sleek, dark and moved with deadly purpose. When they fired their weapons, Zelkarian ships died. Commander Alex Rivera stood on the bridge of the human ship Phantom as it closed in on a Zelkarian destroyer. His crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements showing years of training and experience. "Target their engine section," Alex ordered. "We want prisoners, not wreckage." The Phantom's weapons fired once. The alien destroyer's engines exploded, leaving the ship drifting helplessly. Boarding pods launched from the human vessel, carrying soldiers in advanced armor. Similar scenes played out across the solar system. Human ships that should not exist hunted Zelkarian vessels with terrifying skill. The hunters had become the hunted. On the Dominator's bridge, alarms blared constantly. Damage reports flooded in from across the fleet. General Vex stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In less than an hour, he had lost over 300 ships. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Our intelligence reports showed a primitive species. Where did these ships come from? Where did they learn to fight like this?" Commander Kral looked up from his station, fear clear in his large eyes. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the human government." "Put it through," Vex ordered. The main screen flickered and a human face appeared. It was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes, but something in his expression made Vex feel cold. "General Vex," the human said calmly. "My name is Director Peter Kane. I represent the Earth Defense Council. I believe we need to talk." Vex found his voice. You were ready for us. This entire system is a trap." Director Kane smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "General, you were warned not to come here. Your own Galactic Council tried to tell you. But your empire never listens, does it?" Around Earth's solar system, the battle continued. Human ships moved through the Zelkarian fleet like sharks through a school of fish. For the first time in their history, the mighty Zelkarian Empire was not the hunter. They were the prey. And they were learning that Earth's reputation for being dangerous was not built on fear or rumors. It was built on the bones of every species that had made the same mistake General Vex was making now. The trap had been set long ago. The Zelkarians had simply walked into it. General Vex cut the communication with Director Kane and turned to his officers. His red armor was covered in sweat, and his 4 hands shook with anger and fear. "Launch all ground forces immediately," he ordered. "Take their cities. Use the humans as shields against their own ships." Thousands of Zelkarian dropships fell toward Earth like metal rain. Each ship carried 50 soldiers in battle armor. Their weapons could melt steel, and their shields could stop bullets. General Vex was sure that on the ground his forces would have the advantage. The first wave of ships landed in what had been New York City. The Zelkarian soldiers expected to find crowds of terrified humans. Instead, they found empty streets. The massive city was completely silent. Buildings stood intact, but no people moved inside them. Traffic lights still worked, but no cars drove on the roads. Captain Zek led his squad through Times Square. The huge screen still showed advertisements, but the streets below were like a ghost town. "Command, this is Squad 7, he spoke into his radio. "The city appears to be abandoned." "Impossible," came the reply from the ship above. "Our sensors detected millions of humans in this area just hours ago." Captain Zek looked around at the empty storefronts and silent buildings. "Well, they are gone now, sir." Similar reports came from landing sites around the world. London was empty. Tokyo was deserted. Moscow showed no signs of life. Every major city had been evacuated with impossible speed and efficiency. In orbit above, Earth General Vex faced an even worse problem. More human ships kept appearing from nowhere. They moved through space like living things, phasing in and out of reality. His weapons often passed right through them, as if they were made of light instead of metal. Commander Alex Rivera guided his boarding party through the corridors of the Dominator. The human soldiers moved through the massive ship like they had studied its design for years. They knew exactly where to go and what to destroy. Alex himself wore armor that looked simple compared to Zelkarian technology, but it made him faster and stronger than any alien warrior. His weapon cut through enemy armor like it was made of paper. Behind him, his team worked with deadly efficiency. Sir, one of his soldiers called out, I found their main computer core. Good, Alex replied. Download everything. Ship designs, fleet positions, military codes. We need it all. The Zelkarian ship's defenders tried to stop them, but it was useless. The humans fought like they had been preparing for this exact battle. For decades, every move was perfect. Every shot found its target. On the Dominator's bridge, General Vex received reports that made his blood run cold. Human boarding parties were inside 12 of his largest ships. They were not just destroying equipment. They were stealing information and taking prisoners. How is this possible? He demanded. How do they know our ships so well? Commander Krall worked frantically at his station. Sir, I have analyzed the human weapons. The energy signatures are similar to our own, but modified. It is as if they studied our technology and found ways to improve it. Down on Earth's surface, Captain Zek and his squad had found something that made their situation even worse. Hidden beneath what looked like an ordinary office building, they discovered a massive military base. The technology inside was unlike anything they had ever seen. Dr. Ben Clark waited for them in the main laboratory. He was a thin human with gray hair and calm eyes. He showed no fear as the alien soldiers surrounded him. Welcome to Earth, he said in perfect Zelkarian language. We have been expecting you. Captain Zek raised his weapon. You will come with us as a prisoner. Dr. Clark smiled. Captain Zek of the 34th Assault Division, born on Zelkara Prime, served in the conquest of the Vegan colonies. Your wife's name is Sula, and you have 2 children. The alien captain stepped back in shock. How do you know this? We know everything about your species, Dr. Clark said calmly. We have been studying you for 40 years, ever since your scout ships first entered our solar system. Around the laboratory, Captain Zek could see displays showing Zelkarian ship designs, weapon specifications, and military tactics. But these were not just copies. They were improved versions. Human engineers had taken alien technology and made it better. This is impossible, Captain Zek whispered. Your species is primitive. You barely have space travel. Dr. Clark walked to a large window that looked out over an underground city. Thousands of humans worked at stations filled with advanced technology. Ships that looked like nothing from Earth hung in massive hangar bays. Captain, Dr. Clark said, what you see on Earth's surface is what we want the galaxy to see. Down here is what we really are. He gestured to the bustling activity below. We have been preparing for visitors like you for a very long time. In space, the battle continued to go badly for the Zelkarian fleet. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They struck with perfect precision and vanished before return fire could reach them. Commander Lisa Hayes piloted her fighter through the alien formation. Her ship looked nothing like the primitive aircraft Earth showed the galaxy. It moved faster, then light in short bursts and could phase through solid matter. Gold leader to all units, she called over the radio. Target the command ships first. We want their officers alive for questioning. The human fighters moved with coordination that seemed impossible. They communicated without radio calls as if they could read each other's minds. Their weapons never missed and their tactics were flawless. General Vex watched his proud fleet being torn apart by an enemy that should not exist. Get me a channel to our home fleet, he ordered desperately. We need reinforcements immediately. Sir, Commander Krall replied, our communications are being jammed. We cannot contact anyone outside this system. The general looked at his tactical display. Red lights showed damaged or destroyed ships throughout his fleet. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost nearly half his forces. This was not a battle. It was a massacre. On Earth's surface, Major Tom Bradley emerged from a hidden bunker near what had been downtown Denver. The Zelkarian soldiers who had landed there were now his prisoners. They sat in neat rows, their weapons taken and their armor powered down. Tom spoke into his radio. Command, this is Sector 7. All hostiles captured. No human casualties. The same report came from around the world. Every Zelkarian landing force had been surrounded and captured within hours. The alien soldiers never had a chance. Director Peter Kane stood in the main command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, Hundreds of humans monitored the battle above. The massive screens showed the positions of every ship in the solar system. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "the Zelkarian fleet is trying to retreat. Should we let them go?" Kane shook his head. "Not yet. We need them to understand completely. This cannot happen again." He opened a communication channel to General Vex. The alien's face appeared on the screen, showing fear and confusion. "General," Kane said calmly, "are you ready to listen now?" Vex looked around his burning bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His mighty fleet was in ruins. "What are you?" he asked in a broken voice. "We are what happens when you give a warrior species 40,000 years to prepare for war," Kane replied. "We are what you get when you trap the most dangerous predators in the galaxy on a single world, and then ignore the warnings of those who survived meeting us." The truth hit General Vex like a physical blow. Earth was not a primitive world that had gotten lucky. It was a carefully prepared trap that had been waiting for his empire to be foolish enough to spring it, and they had walked right into it. General Vex gave the order to retreat. What remained of his once mighty fleet began to pull back from Earth, hoping to escape to hyperspace. But as the Zelkarian ships turned to flee, they discovered that Earth's defenses extended far beyond the planet itself. Hidden installations throughout the solar system suddenly came alive. What had looked like simple asteroid mining stations revealed themselves as massive weapon platforms. Ancient-looking satellites near Jupiter opened like flowers, showing deadly energy cannons inside. Even the ice on some of the outer moons began to crack and fall away, exposing military bases that had been hidden for decades. Captain Jenny Walsh piloted her pursuit ship Nighthawk through the fleeing Zelkarian formation. Her vessel moved like a hunting bird, fast and silent. Behind her flew a squadron of similar ships, all painted black and silver. "Target the engine sections only," Jenny called to her team over the radio. "We want prisoners, not wreckage." Her ship's weapons fired, thin beams of blue energy. Each shot was perfectly aimed, disabling enemy vessels without destroying them. The Zelkarian ships found themselves drifting helplessly in space, their crews trapped inside. On Jenny's bridge stood beings from 3 different alien species. There was Korth, a tall green creature from the Vegan colonies. Next to him sat Yila, a small gray being from the Nexari homeworld. At the weapon station worked Zarn, who had once been a Corvan warrior. All of them had been prisoners of war from earlier invasions of Earth. All of them had chosen to stay and fight alongside humanity, rather than return to their own worlds. "Captain," Korth said in his deep voice, "long-range sensors detect Zelkarian ships trying to reach the edge of the system." Jenny smiled. "Let them try. Show them what happens when you run from Earth." At the outer edge of the solar system, the fleeing Zelkarian ships ran into something impossible. A wall of energy stretched across space, blocking their escape. They could not jump to hyperspace while inside this barrier. Commander Rax, captain of the destroyer Swift Death, stared at his navigation screen in disbelief. "How is this possible? This energy field covers the entire system." His science officer worked frantically at her station. "Sir, the field appears to be generated by installations on the outer planets, but our charts show no colonies or bases in those locations." "Because your charts are wrong," came a voice over the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Danny, Ford of the Earth Defense Force. You are now in a containment field. Any attempt to break through will result in the destruction of your ship." On the surface of Earth, the captured Zelkarian soldiers were learning that their problems had only begun. The planet itself seemed to be working against them. In the forests, where some had tried to hide, the trees released a gas that made Zelkarian breathing difficult. Rivers and lakes contained chemicals that burned their skin. Captain Zek and his surviving squad members had taken shelter in what they thought was an abandoned farm. But the crops in the fields around them began to change color, releasing a sweet smell that made the aliens feel weak and dizzy. Dr. Ben Clark found them there, sitting on the ground and struggling to breathe. He wore a simple breathing mask and carried a medical kit. "The corn has been modified to produce toxins harmful to your species," he explained, as he gave them injections to help them breathe. "The wheat releases spores that affect your nervous system. Even the grass under your feet contains chemicals that your bodies cannot process. Captain Zek looked up at the human doctor with confusion. Why are you helping us if your world is designed to kill us? Dr. Clark sat down beside the alien captain. Because we are not monsters, Captain. We prepare for war, but we do not enjoy killing. Your people came to conquer us, but you are still living beings who deserve to be treated with dignity. Around them, other human soldiers were gathering up Zelkarian prisoners. The aliens were not being hurt, but they were clearly no longer free. How long? Captain Zek asked weakly. How long have you been preparing for us? Your species, specifically? About 40 years, Dr. Clark replied. But we have been preparing, for someone like you, much longer than that. In orbit above Earth, the battle was ending. The last free Zelkarian ships were being hunted down by human vessels that seemed to know exactly where to find them. Some alien captains tried to hide behind Earth's moon. Others attempted to use the planet's magnetic field to jam human sensors. Nothing worked. The humans found them all. Commander Alex Rivera stood in the captured bridge of the Dominator. General Vex sat in his command chair, but his hands were bound and human guards surrounded him. The once proud leader of the Zelkarian fleet looked broken and defeated. Your empire sent 3,000 ships, Alex said calmly. In 12 hours, we have captured or disabled 2,800 of them. The remaining 200 are trapped at the edge of our solar system. General Vex raised his head slowly. How? Our technology is superior to anything your species should possess. Alex walked to the main viewing screen, which now showed human ships moving through the wreckage of the Zelkarian fleet. General, let me ask you something. When your scouts first found Earth 50 years ago, what did they report? A primitive world. Divided nations fighting with chemical weapons and nuclear bombs. And when the Corvan Empire sent ships here 20 years ago, what did their survivors tell them? Vex's eyes widened as he began to understand. They said Earth was more dangerous than it appeared. And when the Nexari came 15 years ago, or the Altarians 10 years ago, what did they report? The general's voice was barely a whisper. That Earth was a trap. Alex nodded. Every species that finds us teaches us something new. The Corvans taught us about energy shields. The Nexari showed us how to phase through solid matter. The Altarians gave us better sensors. He gestured to the human ships outside. Each time someone tries to conquer us, we become stronger. But why? Vex asked desperately. Why do you do this? Why not join the galactic community peacefully? Because, Alex replied, the galactic community keeps trying to conquer us. You are the 7th species to attempt invasion of Earth. Each time we hope it will be the last. Each time we are disappointed. On Earth's surface, Director Peter Kane walked through a facility that few humans had ever seen. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a base built inside an underwater mountain, thousands of scientists worked on projects that would have seemed impossible to the outside world. Here, captured alien technology was studied and improved. Ships were built using the best ideas from a dozen different species. Weapons were designed to counter every known form of alien defense. Kane stopped at a viewing window that looked out into a massive underwater hangar. Hundreds of ships floated in the artificial atmosphere ready for launch. These vessels looked nothing like the primitive craft Earth showed to the galaxy. They were built to hunt among the stars. Sir, one of his assistants called out. We are receiving surrender messages from the remaining Zelkarian ships. Kane nodded. Accept their surrender. Bring them down to the containment facilities. Make sure they are treated well. What about their general? General Vex will be our guest for a while, Kane replied. He has a lot to learn about Earth, and we have a lot to learn about the Zelkarian Empire. As night fell over Earth, the planet looked peaceful once again. The cities that had been evacuated began to fill with returning civilians. Children played in parks while their parents watched the news reports about humanity's victory over the latest invasion. But beneath the surface, in hidden bases and secret facilities, the real work continued. Human scientists studied captured Zelkarian technology. Engineers designed new weapons and ships. Strategists planned for the next species that would inevitably come to test Earth's defenses, because there would be a next time. There always was. And when that time came, humanity would be ready. 6 months after the failed invasion, General Vex sat in a comfortable room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The walls were white and clean, and soft music played from hidden speakers. This was not a prison cell, but it was not freedom either. Human guards stood outside his door at all times. Dr. Lisa Grant entered the room carrying a tablet computer and a cup of tea. She had been questioning Vex for weeks now, learning about the Zelkarian Empire and sharing carefully chosen information about Earth. "General," she said, sitting down across from him. "Today I want to tell you the truth about my species. All of it." Vex looked up with tired eyes. The proud warrior who had commanded 3,000 ships now looked old and defeated. "What more could there be? You have already shown me that humans are not what they appear to be." Lisa activated her tablet and showed him an image. It was a star map, but not one that any galactic species would recognize. "This shows the galaxy as it was 50,000 years ago. Do you see this region here?" She pointed to an area near the galactic center. This was the human homeworld, not Earth. The alien general leaned forward, suddenly interested. "That is impossible. Our oldest records show humans have always been on Earth." "Your records are wrong," Lisa said calmly. "We were not born on Earth, General. We were sent there." She showed him another image. This one depicted a massive space battle with ships of unknown design fighting among the stars. 50,000 years ago, humanity controlled 12 star systems. We were explorers and warriors, spreading across the galaxy and learning from every species we met. "What happened?" Vex asked. "We met the architects," Lisa replied. "They were an ancient species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They saw us as a threat to their perfect order. Humans learned too quickly, adapted too fast, and spread too far." The next image showed Earth as it had been long ago, a dead world with no atmosphere, orbiting a dying star. The architects decided to solve the human problem permanently. They could not destroy us completely because other species would have objected, so they chose a different solution. Beck stared at the image in shock. They made Earth into a prison. "The greatest prison ever built," Lisa confirmed. "They moved our entire species to that dead world and used their technology to give it life. Oceans, atmosphere, plants, animals, everything was designed specifically for us. Then they erased all records of where humans really came from." She showed him recordings of the ancient Earth. Massive machines worked to transform the planet while human ships were destroyed in orbit. Millions of people were forced down to the surface while their technology was taken away. The architects believed that without our ships and advanced technology, humans would eventually destroy ourselves through war and violence. Earth was designed to contain us until we died out naturally. General Vex felt a chill run through his body. "But you did not die out." "No," Lisa said with a cold smile. "We did something the architects never expected. We learned. We adapted. We turned their prison into our fortress." She activated a holographic display that filled the room. It showed Earth's solar system, but not as it appeared to visiting ships. Hidden bases covered every planet and moon. Weapon platforms disguised as asteroids filled the spaces between worlds. The entire system was one massive military installation. "Every species that found us taught us something new," Lisa explained. "The first visitors, the Corvins, showed us energy weapons. We studied their technology and made it better. The Nexari taught us about sensor systems. The Altarians showed us ship design. Each invasion made us stronger." "But why did so many species attack you?" Vex asked. "Because the architects programmed them to," Lisa replied. "Before they disappeared from the galaxy, they planted suggestions in the genetic memory of dozens of species. When those species reached a certain level of technology, they would feel compelled to seek out and conquer Earth. The hologram changed to show the movement of various species across the galaxy over thousands of years. One by one, they developed space travel, found Earth, and attempted invasion." "You mean our entire empire was created just to attack your world?" Not your entire empire, Lisa corrected, but the drive to expand, to conquer, to seek out Earth specifically. Yes, that was programmed into your people long ago. General Vex put his head in his hands. Everything his species had believed about their destiny was a lie. The architects are gone? They left the galaxy 30,000 years ago, Lisa said. We assume they found another galaxy to control, but their programming remained, buried deep in the genetic code of species like yours. And now? Vex asked quietly. Lisa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see human children playing in a park above ground. They looked happy and peaceful, unaware of the vast military complex beneath their feet. Now the programming is breaking down, she said. Your attack on Earth was supposed to be the final test. If we survived and defeated you, it would prove that humans had evolved beyond the architect's control. She turned back to face the alien general. We passed that test, General. For the first time in 50,000 years, humanity is free to leave Earth. As if summoned by her words, Colonel Ray Parker entered the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and the bearing of a professional soldier. Behind him came two other humans carrying official documents. General Vex, Ray said formally, in 1 week, a human delegation will travel to the Galactic Council. We will be announcing our intention to join the galactic community as a free and equal species. Vex looked up in alarm. The Council will never accept you. They fear humans too much after what you did to our fleet. Ray smiled. General, after what we did to your fleet, I do not think anyone will object to our membership application. Dr. Lisa Grant activated one final hologram. This one showed human ships throughout the galaxy, sleek vessels that had been launching from Earth in secret for the past 10 years. They were already establishing colonies on distant worlds and making contact with peaceful species. The galaxy thought Earth was humanity's prison, Lisa said. They were wrong. Earth was humanity's school. For 50,000 years we learned everything we needed to know about warfare, technology, and survival. Now our education is complete. She looked directly at General Vex. Your species and 6 others tried to conquer us. Instead, you taught us how to conquer the galaxy. 3 days later, Ambassador Keth of the Altarian people received a message that made his hands shake. It was a simple communication from Earth, sent on all galactic frequencies. To all species of the galaxy, the message began. Humanity announces its intention to join the Galactic Council as a free and independent civilization. We seek peaceful relations with all species and mutual cooperation in matters of trade and exploration. The message was signed by Director Peter Kane, representing the United Government of Earth. Keth immediately contacted the Galactic Council, but he was too late. Similar messages were being received throughout the galaxy. Human ships were appearing at the edge of dozens of star systems, not as invaders, but as visitors seeking diplomatic contact. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Grant stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest starship, the Enterprise. Through the viewing windows, she could see the blue and white world that had been humanity's home for 50,000 years. Are you sad to leave? Asked Captain Jake Morrison, who would be commanding the ship's first mission to the Galactic Core. Lisa shook her head. Earth will always be our home, but it was never meant to be our cage. The Enterprise turned away from Earth and engaged its faster-than-light drive. Behind it, dozens of other human ships were launching from hidden bases throughout the solar system. Humanity was finally returning to the stars, and this time, they were not coming as students or prisoners. They were coming as teachers,